Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink. It is time for some Path of Exile 2 discussion. Actually, skip the drink. This is going to be a short video, but it's going to be an important one. 040C Hotfix 15 came out today, a couple hours ago. We're going to talk about that in a sec, but there's a very important piece of background we have to go through first, something that I think people really need to keep in mind, because there is a financial incentive for people like me, content creators in the Path of Exile 2 space, to make you angrier about the game. And that's something you need to have in mind so that you can assess just how accurate various commentary about the game is. That is something that's really noticeable when you have a look at some of the commentary that's developed around Hotfix 13. Hotfix 13 was a terrible patch, but this was not a patch that was the game developers versus the entire player base. This was not a rich get richer, poor get poorer moment. Instead, this was Grinding Gear Games really messing up the league aspirations of what you might term the Path of Exile to middle class. The people who are not the top couple of percent of the player base, because those people already had an optimized temple set up. Although I will add in that those people did get nerfed pretty hard by Hotfix 13. One aspect of that was the swapping around of the Spymaster room. That meant that a bunch of their previously optimal choices in their temples were no longer optimal and sometimes were just downright wrong. And on top of that, there was also the nerf from diminishing returns, which was really substantial. So the very top end player base, they were getting something like 75 to 80% less loot. And that's based on a reasonably large number of temples. It's not the bottom 70% of the league either. The people who've not yet run multiple tier 15 maps. The people in the middle, the people who've run plenty of tier 15 maps, but are not yet at the point of having a top end temple set up, they were the people who got completely hosed when Hotfix 13 came along. However, this nuanced and honest take on what the patch was does not get clicks. It does not get ad revenue, and therefore it just doesn't do very well online. And that's important to keep in mind. I knew when Hotfix 13 came out, if I exaggerated this, if I made it seem like this is even worse than it actually is, if I made it seem like no one except Fubgun has a chance of doing anything anymore in the game, then I probably would have ended up making $500 to $1,000 out of that video. The problem with doing that is that you can only sell your integrity once. I gave my honest opinion when I said this patch was terrible. I still think that, but it was not as bad as a lot of online discussion is aimed at making you think it is, because making you angry enough that instead of logging into the game, you watch another video straight afterwards. This is the top secret farming strategy. This is the way that you make a lot of money as a dishonest content creator, and it's something that I'm not willing to do. But I think it's very important that you understand, we all understand this meta. We understand it often better than the viewer does. So I really wanted to be clear about that before we go into Hotfix 15 itself. Hotfix 15 is reverting one of the more controversial changes in Hotfix 13. Interestingly, this one I had underestimated how severe it was when Hotfix 13 came out, and I was pretty quickly convinced that my original reactions to that had been wrong. However, afterwards, Hotfix 14 did partially reverse this as well. So the exact details here, the medallion that allows you to lock a room in place, this can now be applied on tier 1 and tier 2 rooms again, which means that it's easier to construct a temple. It's easier to go from not having a temple to having an optimized temple now. That's an important thing, and this reopens the pathways to those people who are not in the bottom 70% of the player base. They're not casual players, but at the same time, they're not top-end power gamers either. It opens the pathway to them to aspire towards having one of these top-end temples set up. In that sense, I think that this is actually a really positive patch. And it seems like that is the case from the reactions that most of the people have to this in the thread here. Although it is worth remembering again that the people who respond in a Grinding Gear Games official forum thread, they're going to be the people who are most engaged with the game, and therefore they are going to be disproportionately far progressed in the game. So you do want to keep that in mind. I do think this is a good patch. I don't think it's going to turn around the mess that the trade league economy is in, and I don't think it's going to bring back the people who quit, because 040C led to massive inflation, and it meant that they've lost confidence in the fairness of the league economy. Chris Wilson, who had formerly been the leader of Grinding Gear Games, put out a video over the weekend. The timing is probably a coincidence. I don't think this was him throwing shade, but who knows about that. It seemed like it was something he'd been working on for a while though. And it was talking about the importance of trade league economies that people can have some confidence in. Now, he was talking about it from a game studio's viewpoint, looking at things like professionalized cheating through commercial real money trade services, things like bot farms, and also things like item duplication exploits that players might use, how to detect them, and then how to deal with them when they come up, and also, most importantly, why it's important to bother with these things at all. And I think one of the things that really stuck with me out of that video was thinking about 040. I now associate the incursion temple mechanic with trade league economies that are inflationary. There is no need for that to always be the case in the future. It's entirely possible for this mechanic to be fixed and for the loot system to work. But if this mechanic were to go core, there would need to be a lot of work to actually convince players that all of the problems along these sorts of lines have been fixed. That's not going to be fun for grinding gear games to work out, but that's something they don't need to do now. The key thing they need to do now is get things into the best possible state they can for the people that's still playing. I'm going to leave it there. Keep in mind all the things I said about clickbait, ragebait, and the financial incentives that we have as content creators to farm you by cultivating your anger, cultivating your rage, and getting you to spend your fun time being mad at the game instead of playing it. That is something that can make us money. I don't want that to be the case, but it's the reality. The more aware of these dynamics you are, and the more willing you are when you find something that just seems to be real and utter clickbait to just click away from it, then the better insulated you are so that you don't end up being farmed by someone with less integrity than me. I'm going to leave it there. Mega Varlorbs have interesting results.